What you should be talking about is the fact that we have the greatest 6 months in the history of a presidency, according to a lot of people. And we had an amazing 6 months. And this is sort of an example of it. Now we're meeting with the European Union, we're also meeting with, as you know, the head of UK, Prime Minister, and I look forward to that. But we're meeting in terms of a deal. We're meeting with the European Union, and that would be actually the biggest deal of them all if we make it.
President Trump keeping the focus on his accomplishments during the first 6 months in office amid all the reporter questions about the Epstein files. Let's bring in Steamboat Institute Blankley Fellow Amber Duke and Axiom Strategies Erin Maguire. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike.
So there's a lot of talk this week about alleged politicization of intelligence in 2016 about Russia and questions about potential prosecution. Let's play the president on that.
The immunity ruling. But it doesn't help the people around him at all. But it probably helps him a lot. He's done criminal acts. There's no question about it. But he has immunity, and it probably helped him a lot.
A trade agreement you're looking to sign too.
He owes me big. Obama owes me big.
Amber, is it time for the president to fully pivot to talking about the economy?
Well, I think when we look at polling on these issues, consistently what we see is that the Epstein files don't crack the top 5, even 10 issues for voters. Voters have very strong opinions about them, but realistically, economy, immigration should be the president's bread and butter. And as we get closer to the midterms, that's definitely what he wants to focus on when we have a series of overperforming jobs reports, a massive trade deal just announced with Japan. And on the immigration front, you have net zero border crossings for the first time in American history. Those are the major accomplishments that are really going to get those low turnout voters, those mid turnout voters, people who don't normally come out in a midterm election to want to vote for the president's agenda.
Erin, you've done your time in politics. What about messaging at this point for this president?
I think Amber's point is correct here. He should be talking about the successes, the economy, and immigration, but he can also be hitting Democrats for their chaos. Who is the media's best friend right now? Democrats. Why? Because they are the ones under Hakeem Jeffries who are wanting to continue to talk about Epstein. Trump has an incredible record of Republican, conservative, economic, geopolitical, and right here at home accomplishments. This country is on its best standing. And so what I would encourage the president and the White House is keep flooding the zone the way they are. You see them, if it's a trade deal, if it's the border, whatever it is, they are not slowing down, but continue to keep the pressure on Democrats' chaos machine, because it is them who want to talk about Epstein. Why? Because they don't have policies. They're not here for the American people, and they're certainly not delivering.
All right, then there's the Democratic Party. The DNC chair suggests it has hit rock bottom. Let's play him.
There's no doubt that, we have work to do. I've seen for some years now us continue to lose ground with many parts of our coalition. But guess what? When you hit rock bottom, there's only one direction to go, and that's up.
Amber, what's your take on that?
I wouldn't often say that the DNC chair is correct, but in this case, he is. I mean, you've got the rising star of the party who is an avowed socialist in New York City who can't even run for president, by the way, so that wipes out that potential shot at 2028. You've got Gavin Newsom lying out of both sides of his mouth without seemingly a care in the world that he's doing it, trying to make the independent podcast run. Down in Kentucky, Andy Beshear, a Nepo baby who's trying to pose as a blue-collar worker while doing a Vogue photo shoot from the governor's mansion. I mean, they're in complete shambles right now. They have no leadership, no policies to speak of. That's why they are salivating over this Epstein issue, because it's the only thing they have to try to divide the Republican Party, which is more united behind Trump than they ever have been in GOP history.
Then there's former Vice President Kamala Harris eyeing a political comeback. Let's play her.
You know what's at stake, and you are not waiting for someone else to figure it out. You refuse to be passive. Not only are you demanding action, you are actively shaping the future. And we need to invest then in your generation. I think of you the way history thought of the greatest generation.
Erin, does that taped interview inspire young voters?
You'd have to ask them. However, I will say Kamala never broke 2% in the Democrat primary. So I can't imagine her or Nancy Pelosi were really getting the youth going today in D.C. with them spouting nonsense. She can't build a coalition. This is not a fresh face for the Democrat Party. This is not someone with policy proposals or ideas. This is where Democrats fail in politics over and over again, and I don't want to give them free political advice, but maybe they should listen this time. You have to do addition in politics to bring people in, to build coalitions, to win elections. Kamala Harris is one of the most divisive left-wing radical politicians in the United States. She's not bringing anybody on board for Democrats. She can't even bring Democrats on board to try and help her win. So for Democrats, I would say try and find somebody new. But if you look at their bench, they've got no prospects. So good luck, Godspeed.
Then there's a situation across the street at the United States Senate. There are about 100 nominees waiting for votes. President Trump has suggested the idea of possibly canceling the August recess, which we know is sacred on Capitol Hill. What's the play here, Amber? Does Senator Thune keep them in session through like next weekend and cut some kind of deal to get a bunch through the finish line?
He has two options right now. He can either cancel the recess, get these nominees through, or he can call a recess and allow Trump to make recess appointments. But this third option that's being floated is the option that makes nobody happy, which is that senators come back every 6 days to technically keep the Senate open and prevent Trump from doing those recess appointments and not getting those 100 people through. That's going to make angry the moderate senators who don't want to be traveling back and forth from D.C. during the summer months, and also the conservatives who want these nominees in ASAP.
Aaron, they love a good recess. How does this play out?
I think you see Senator John Thune do what he has done as majority leader, and that is keep the Senate functioning and working, not only with historic Democrat obstruction on these nominees. Everything has been a roll call vote. There have been no time agreements. Democrats have made this as difficult as possible for Donald Trump to install the people for him to serve in this country. So even with that, you are still seeing a higher pace right now of nominees being approved. So Thune will keep them here. They will all hate it. Eventually, either Democrats will rebel against Schumer and shut it down, or they will get the nominees through. But I think it's not going to end in the Senate anytime soon.
All right, Aaron, Amber, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.